In this module, I will talk about using vocals in my music. I try to add some kind of a human, organic element to my music. So I will run you through the snippets that I have in here. This track is a little bit more melody driven and it doesn't have as much vocal as some of the other tracks that I made do. It's not that poppy or indie, if you want to call it, but it has some cool examples that I would like to share with you. So for example, here, let's look at my vocal processing. I use a very cool plugin called Maserati, which is by Waves, and it's a very cool combination of some effects here, like reverb, compression, and it makes it sound very well produced. And then I have a tiny bit of distortion, compression, ping pong delay as always, some EQing in the process. Very cool plugin, which is called Vocal Synth by Isotope. And this one is good for tuning as well. I personally like when the vocals are crazy tuned sometimes. Like it gives it this robotic sound. And I think it's, it's a technology advancement that we should embrace. It's just, for me, it just goes with techno music, and I like the sound of it. And I try to use it in my songs. Then there's also a cool plugin called Morphoder by Waves, which is a vocoder, basically. So you choose the notes here that then will play along the vocal, and then let's have a listen of what it sounds like. So this is just me basically breathing to the microphone, but it is a sound that is heavily processed and sounds cool with the rest of the groove, and it gives it this ethereal feeling again. So without these, it's just a weird sounding breathe. Then we process it with vocal synth, make sure it's in the key, and so you can hear there is a tiny bit of auto-tune at the end and makes it sound like like more, in my opinion, it sounds a bit more robotic, but I really like this sound. And then we add the Morphoder. So there's more voices behind the original vocal, and we can modulate this as well here. So give it a bit more of the morph. And now you can really hear this vocoder, typical vocoder sound. And if we put the modulator down, then it becomes a very unique spacey sound. Maybe it sounds like an alien if you want to sound like one. Super cool. And what I also do is I pitch my vocals down a little bit so they don't sound like feminine vocal anymore, but more of a different sex. So this is actually, normally it sounds like this. It sounds really cool when it's with the groove, and it just adds like extra effects, elements to the track. So let's listen with the rest of the track. And again, it's all about just being creative with it. You think different techniques, like also you can reverse the vocals here. And sometimes, when you have a vocal part, you might introduce it with something like this. I mean, these are a bit more similar to each other, but if you have a full take of a vocal and you just want to have like this brief introducing the vocal and like building into introducing a new vocal element, this is a cool way to do it. And so yeah, like for this, like I said, these are more snippets, and these are more vocal here is more, the role of the vocal here is more as a sound effect rather than a full vocal take. But yeah, if you're into more like indie music, pop music, then of course like you will want to build vocal sections for the track, maybe around here, maybe chorus around break, and another part around here again. And another cool technique that I really like using is putting your vocal sample into a sampler. Well, simpler here. So this is the classic view, but if you go to slice, your vocal sample becomes an instrument, like a MIDI triggered instrument. So for example, if we go here, this is our instrument. I've put one of the vocal samples on here. I can do it again so you see. This is a different one, but let's go back maybe to a longer one. Yeah, so if we zoom in, this is where our keys are now. So I'm just going to use this keyboard. You have to find the right scale they're in, so they are being triggered. So you can create another groove with like vocal snippets, which can be quite cool. Like for this, I just did something like this. And then write it into a MIDI file, which looks like this. And then if we listen to it on its own, it sounds something like this. Yeah, you can process it further, sidechain it, and just have it as like an extra layer, melodic layer in your track, and play with it using different techniques later. I have it really heavily sidechained here so that it goes with the rhythm, and I think it sounds pretty cool. So that's more or less it for the vocals in this track, because they are quite minimalistic. But maybe there will be a class in the future where we can talk more about vocal recording and vocal processing in more indie tracks.